Welcome back to the channel. Brandon with Davidson Audio, the Indian motorcycle audio specialist located right here in beautiful Panama City, Florida. And today we're going to be talking about something that I get questions about quite frequently. And I wanted to do this video to help y'all and future customers. And this is active versus passive, or biamp/active versus passive audio packages. And honestly, which one will suit you and which one do you need for your motorcycle? All right, let's get into exactly what the difference between passive and active/biamping your speakers is. So running them passive means that your mid and your tweeter are ran together in parallel on one channel of your amplifier, thus kind of combining them on that channel where you would tune them together. Running things active or biamping is like when you take the mid and the tweeter, you separate them. You would run, say, hypothetically, the tweeter on channel 1 or a separate amplifier, and the mid of that speaker on the second channel or a completely different amplifier. The gain to that is that you can tune the tweeter and the mid separately, and on a passive setup, they would be tuned together. Now, we can kind of get into a whole snowball effect with this. We can really get into the nitty-gritty of this. But the purpose of this video is to just kind of discuss the two different options, give you some visuals which are behind us, and kind of just touch on the surface of this. I'm not going to go into super detail. I just want to kind of help people if they're on the fence or they're on the forums and people are telling them, hey, you have to go active, it's the absolute best, or no, stay passive, it's simple. So let's turn to the speaker selections that we have behind us, kind of go over what that would look like, and then we'll discuss kind of what the application would be for you. So we're going to just start with our wiring that we offer for the passive and the active/biamp setups. And that's going to be in these two bags. So the biggest difference, and I'll pull some out for example, is the passive is going to be a single run of oxygen-free copper wiring. We use 16 gauge to each speaker location. Now the active setup is going to be 2 runs per speaker location. So you're going to have a 14 and a 16 gauge oxygen-free copper wire ran to each speaker location, thus allowing you to run the speakers actively or separate on either the same amplifier, different channels, or another amp or 2 separate amplifiers. So let's open these up and give you some better ideas of what they look like side by side. Here we have our example. I just grabbed the inside the saddlebag portion of our wiring harness. That way you could see exactly a side-by-side comparison. On both of them, regardless, we're going to send you a 4-pin connector. The reason we do this is because maybe now you want to go passive, but then later you decide, well, I want to add a mid-bass inside my bag, or now I want to go to a bigger speaker selection, I want to run it active. Then you can just simply get the wires from us, we can pin them in here, you're good to go. Now, from there, you'll notice that obviously we have an extra wire. So the white, or it'll be red-black, is going to be for either the one solo speaker or what you would use for your tweeter because it's 16 gauge. Now you'll notice we added a black wire, which is 14 gauge oxygen-free copper. That's the only wiring we use, and that's what we run for our mids. So like I said, same connectors, just obviously the passive you got an opening, active you don't. You can see the size difference between the two, same coloring and everything, and then at the end of the harness, the passive only has a single, but the active you have your tweeter wire here and your mid wire over here. That way you can terminate them at either speaker location and you are good to rock and roll there. So this is the difference in our harnesses, as you can tell from passive, and then our active/biamp harnesses. Now let's talk about our speakers. So I set up on our workbench a couple different speaker options. I wanted to give you the first option, which is a speaker that can be ran active or biamp, and honestly you can run that on either of these setups. It just depends on how you wire it. The most popular speaker that we like to use, this is the Cicada Audio CH65. This is their coaxial horn speaker, so obviously you can see the compression horn in the middle, the mid bass on the side. On the back, this is where we get into our bi-amping or active. In our basic packages, we run things passive. So we wire our tweeter, which is back here, to our mid and on one set of wires. What we'll do is we'll grab a crossover, we'll hook it up real quick so you can see that visually. Now we have our crossover connected to the speaker. So when I was talking about, I wanted to give you a better visual of how we would hook it up passively. So you can see we have our mid wiring here and our tweeter wiring. This one's already pre-set up, so it's already soldered into our harness. But we tape up the harness there, solder it in here, so you can see, if you look really closely, you can see both sets of wires here soldered into our harness here, thus making this a passive setup because you have one run that we're running back to our amplifier with our wire ferrules, connect it, and you're done. Now with this, when you go to tune it, now the tweeter and the mid are together with a crossover. So the crossover brings in that tweeter. This one is at 4,000 hertz. So what happens is the crossover naturally gives you the that crossover difference. So the mid's going to get its certain range, and then the tweeter's only going to get up above that 4K. So now when we go to tune it, we're tuning them together. You're still able to tune the tweeter in. You can dial that in a little, or dial that in the mid. But when the mid plays beyond that 4K, or where it starts to naturally roll off, you're not able to fine tune that as much because you have, if you can picture it here with me, like if this is your frequency range right here at 4K is when your tweeter starts to come in. And your mid is going to come in wherever you set it. Like we like to set these ones at 100 hertz, so it's going to come in at 100. It's going to come up, and then it's probably going to go past that 4K and start naturally rolling off. So in this area where your 4K comes up and over, and this naturally rolls off, in this area, you're trying to tune two speakers together, which on these isn't too terrible in that area. There's some areas to tweak, but primarily you're going to be focusing on the tweeter and the mid down in the down range there. So that's where running things passive doesn't give you the tuning flexibility as it would active, because you have that area in the middle where you're trying to tune two speakers together. So that's really where running things active, if you're that particular, or if you're trying to run into competition, or you're just that audiophile that wants that absolute control of everything, then that's where we're going to go active. So let's talk about this stuff being active. Like I said, on this speaker, when you want to run it active, which you saw our harness, which you see the black 12 or 14 gauge, will be running to your mid down here, and then you take either your white or your red black that we offer, and it would go to the crossover for your tweeter. Now, the crossover does not have to be used if you're using these active and you have a DSP. I still use the crossovers as a fail-safe, because if something happens with your DSP and you lose your tuning file, then it's going to send whatever it wants to your speakers. The mids can usually handle that a little bit better, but if you send a super low frequency, like into the hundreds or 80s, to a tweeter, you can cause some serious damage and probably blow the diaphragm that's in here. So that tweeter, the crossover, is just an added protection to your tweeter to help nothing under 4,000 hertz get to your tweeter. So on these, super easy to do. You're just going to cut the ends of the crossover off, solder in directly to your tweeter, and then you can run your wire directly to your mid. From there, which will be the same setup, just now we're separating the speakers. We go over here to our bass and tweeter separate with our brackets. Here is the Cicada Audio CM6.5. As you can see, it resembles the CH very much in the mid bass area. But then you can obviously see they put a cone in the middle versus a compression horn tweeter. This is where you're able to tune in specifically your mid-bass speaker. And as you can see, it's got that nice treated cone here, or not cone, but it's going to be your your cone, your surround, and then the cap right there in the middle. Nice, large neodymium magnet, vented, very hefty speaker. This we'll put in the fairing. And then we offer different options for tweeter brackets. So this is one that we offer for the Cicada Audio RR075T, or you can use them with the Diamond Audio 75T as well. And that would simply, you'd put this in the OEM location, Our bracket would sit up like this, allowing you to use the OEM bolts to bolt it together into the fairing. Or if you're a Bema fan and you want to use a Bema mid or whatever mid, and you want to use a Bema Hershey Kiss tweeters, they call them, then we make a bracket for that as well. And same thing, it would sit right here, give you plenty of clearance for that. And then at this point, you would be able to wire in your mid, like I said, to our 14 gauge wiring, and then your tweeter to the 16 gauge wiring. You can either run them to the same amplifier in different channels, or like a lot of people like to do, run them to separate amplifiers and tune them specifically on their own. So again, like I said earlier, when I brought in visualization of our crossovers, now you're able to run a band pass, which is a high and low pass on your mid bass, so you can tell it like, hey, don't let anything below this frequency. Let's say hypothetically it's 80 hertz, and this is our frequency range. Here at 80 hertz, you can cut it off so it doesn't play anything below that. And then you can say like, all right, cool, at 5,000 hertz, I want to cut it off, don't play anything above that. So that's where you get your band pass. It's don't let anything below this, don't let anything above this, only play in this frequency. And anything in that frequency you can manipulate. You can bring it down, you can bring it up. There's a lot that goes into that. We'll do some future tuning videos in the future and hopefully do some collaborations with some other really good audio shops out there to really dive deep into tuning, because I'm sure we could do a whole series specifically on tuning, which we will do in time. Right now, let's just keep it on the basics, just keep this very informative and, like I said, to the basics. Now let's talk about in what application would you want to go active versus passive. Beginning, for me, 80, maybe closer to 90% of my customers, I'm gonna just recommend you go passive. And the reason I say that is because unless you're trying to go out there and you're trying to compete, or you tell me that you're so absolutely adamant that you're the highest audiophile out there, that you have to have absolute control of every little thing, then there's no need for you to go active. I know on my first video series that I did, we did run that one active. I chose to do it that way, and now after some more and more time, I'm kind of gearing that back towards passive, especially with the speaker selections we have, to make it easier for you, the customer, because it's less wiring you have to run, it's less tuning that I have to do for you, and it's easier for you or the shop that you want to retune it, to tune it in and cater it a little bit more to you. Now, like I said, if you're that audiophile that is very extremely particular about your sound and how it is, and you want to fine tune it to the absolute detail for you, or you're in sound competitions, then yes, we're going to go active for you. We're going to separate the mids and the tweets, going to give you full control of the entire system, and allow you to really fine tune this in for you, for the exact bike, where you're at, what you listen to. That way, if you're out there competing, you're going to win. And if you're out there and you just want the absolute best audio, then guess what? You're going to fine tune it and you will have the best audio out there. And with that, that's really the nuts and bolts to my recommendation for active versus passive. I'm sorry if this video is kind of all over the place. It's just something that I get asked a lot, and I want to make sure I can take the time to convey this to you, the customer, so that way you feel more comfortable and more prepared when you reach out to us for an audio package, or when the website is up and you want to go on there and select your audio package, you feel like you have what you need to make the correct decision for you, for your motorcycle, your listening preferences, and that you are happy. Because my ultimate goal is not to just sit here and sell you all this equipment. I want to sit here and make sure that your goals are not only met but exceeded, and that you're extremely happy with your purchase. I don't want you spending money more than once. I don't want you to feel like that you're just burning money in a hole in your pocket. Like, let's just get it done. Let's get it done once and get it done right, so that way you're out there not only enjoying your motorcycle, but you're enjoying your motorcycle with your audio as well. So with that being said, I just wanted to touch base one last time. I know we're getting close, very close to our 1K subscriber goal, and I've harped on this on every video, but please do us a favor, like, subscribe to the channel, share it for us, because at 1,000 subscribers, again, we're giving away a Braille lithium battery with charger combo to one lucky subscriber for free. And again, that doesn't have to be solely an Indian. Don't feel like if you have a Harley, but well, it doesn't pertain to me. It does. I don't care what bike you have. If you're a subscriber and you're supporting us, I want to support you. So whatever bike you have, if Braille makes a battery for that, we'll get you set up so that way you're out there enjoying your bike with the lithium. So yes, please help share, subscribe to the channel. And again, we are now relocated in beautiful Panama City, Florida. So if you're coming down to Thunder Beach or Daytona, come on over, give us a visit, or if you want us to do your system, get a hold of us. We'll schedule an appointment. We'll get you in here and get out of here. We have a good, solid team here that can take care of you and get you in and out of the door. So enough talking. Brandon with Davidson Audio, and we're out.